The truth is, it's all of the things. You know, there's always a balance between what you're lacking and what you're trying to explore. Because exploration doesn't only come from what you're lacking. It doesn't. There's a spirit to it. There's a fun to it. There's an innocence to it. There's a curiosity. There's like being able to, when you get curious about stuff, you start going, well, God, I kind of know this, but what if I tried that? And all of a sudden you're like in this other realm, right? Because I've definitely been noticing how much I've been losing too. This is like I'm more, things are changing. And it's like I keep thinking, oh, but I know I'm smart enough to not know, to know that it's not that I want to get everything back, right? I want to like figure out what's happening now. All right, so start to feel a little bit more rather than less. Do you want to say any more, Angelique? I want to give you a chance to come back if you have something that came to your mind.
The only thing I wanted to say was that the reason that I love yoga and have always loved yoga is because it's always felt like a journey to me, and one that I never had to get to like the end of, and like I never had to be great at it. I just always had got to explore. And in moments like that, I'm always glad to be reminded that that's what I love about this practice, because that gets when I get stuck on those little detours on the road, I need to come back to it's just the journey and just
Yeah.
in the journey.
I mean, there's so many ways to say that, and you know, and I've been writing some stuff about trying to not be, trust in. I think that I don't know, Bethany, did the post come out about the last headstand, the last class that, yeah, about, basically I said it to you guys all last week, trust the hours, for haven't they taken you everywhere? Right. But hasn't time taken you everywhere? Don't be in a rush. Time's actually one of the teachers, right? Like you really have to start embracing how deep and how the time is part of it. So you only get to know things at certain times and certain things. Like I've been thinking a lot about in my practice, what is it that I call the sensation of, or when I feel like I've connected more to my bones. Oh dang, I gotta rest my bones. Oh, that cut me to the bone. Oh, this. Oh, think about all the ways we use bones, right? And what's this, and obviously, especially in Iyengar yoga, there's a lot about alignment, and there's a lot about feeling your sitting bones and putting your forearm and feeling the bone. But what does that even mean? So just sit here for a second. And I'm pretty sure that when I start to think I come into another thing I'm really curious about is what changes when I start being aware of my skin, right? And then I think about I'm down to my skin and bones, right? Like what a weird saying that is, right? So there are all these things that I find ways to start wondering about what the sensations I'm having. So like I'm gonna rest my bones. So just sit for a second. If you were to just collapse, so like say you're really tired and you finally, I gotta rest my bones, and you like get into bed. If there was only the sinking feeling, because what's great about finally getting into bed, let's say, is that there's that at first you're just, oh, but then a floating feeling comes after that, right? When you're finally in bed and letting the relief in, right? So you wouldn't want to just feel your bones by just collapsing, right? But now on an exhale, as I one time in a twist heard Bikas Angar give the instruction, let the gravitational force affect your legs, right? And don't just think about your legs, but like right now, like try to like on an exhale, like I have no freaking idea what he means by let the gravitational effect affect your leg, or gravitational force affect your legs. I've been trying to figure out what that could mean, and I don't know if you meant, except I kind of do know. When I exhale and I let the world drop, and I know that something is moving me down, And that down energy actually is part of where I think your bones actually give direction. So when I go down to my sitting bones, and if I really do it pretty well, and if I can soften my groins just a little bit, but remember, I don't feel any of this stuff. So I'm talking about it energetically. If I feel my sitting bones, I immediately, if I feel the space between my sitting bones, then my groins kind of relax. And then if I kind of feel where my femur bones are, which I don't quite feel, then I can actually, as soon as I drop, I can feel it go out towards my knees. And I want that energy to go make a connection down to my inner heels. Because remember, I'm not making this happen. See, I'm not trying to be active with my mind. Prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Anyone remember me saying that like a zillion times over all these years? Right? So it's not that I'm trying to now, before I do asana, and I started to make it more active, when I connect to my sitting bones, allow my groin or in between the sitting bones to release some, find where my knees are and let the energy like a river go to my knees and then down to my heels. I'm not trying to do anything yet. I'm trying to create the tent pegs or the signposts with without action, but just being aware of my sitting bones released towards where my knees are and down to my heels, and using shavasana, not action. I'm trying to allow a release. Now, in my opinion, for what I call it, I think that's something to do with being more aware of what bones feel like. I don't know exactly. So now once I keep allowing that and I'm using my exhalation to let there be a gravitational effect on my legs, I'm going to start to rise up. But I'm going to try not to steal from my legs. I'm going to know that there's a little bit of sun. This is a great song by Semisonic, right? Right. So I'm going to start to go in the opposite direction, but try not to steal from my legs. Oh, I think non-stealing might be one of the things we're supposed to do. So how can I let the gravitational effect go down and lift my spine up and not have my spine steal from my legs? And maybe there's a real subtle balance in there. Now I'm going to make sure I soften my jaw on the inside of my mouth and lift my chest a little bit. So I'm trying to create the signpost for the prana to fill in before too much action. Because in a little bit, I'm going to make this be more asana. Spread between my shoulder blades. All these things like I'm coming back online, right? I'm like, this is going to be, we're moving closer to asana. Now I'm going to go inward again, soften the inside of my mouth and my jaw, and let the activation be here and try to have it not steal from the release. Let there be a rise. Know that there's an infinite balance between the fall and the rise. You're never going to fully master it. It's cool. Don't worry about it. If you want to bring your hands into prayer now to actually make a deeper connection to your midline, do that. Right? So now you got a whole bunch of variables. And to me, putting my hands together right now, getting the disappearing core, which apparently is physically disappearing for Amanda, but it's not energetically disappearing. It never actually disappears, just so you know. You abandon it, it doesn't go anywhere, right? And then I'm going to connect the heel of my hands to get the center of my chest. But remember, I'm trying not to steal from my legs. Holy cow, I just stole from my legs. My mouth is a cave. My temples relax. There's a little bit of moon and a little bit of sun. Oh, Hatha yoga is yoking the sun and the moon. What's the moon? What's the sun? Makes me smile that it's all a story going on inside my body. I'm going to be grateful that this living is before me. I'm going to let go of my day and I'm going to prepare my mind to do yoga. Oh, and then my inhale and exhale can help me lengthen my spine. Life is good. Good. And then release. Take your sternum up towards your chin and your chin down over your sternum. That changes everything. And it changes nothing. What? There's my particular body, and there's the unified sensation underneath all the time. My body changes, it stays constant, and I'm part of a coordinating and discoordinating symphony between the two. Good, and then release. So, I'm having a lot, as you know, like I've got all this stuff going on one shoulder. So I'm sitting there and I'm realizing, oh, I'm talking about this nice barfy stuff, that there's something constant and there's something particular. And my shoulder blade is freaking hurting. The side of my neck is hurting. And all these things are coming up on me, right? They're all happening. And all that is an expression and a conduit for the core. And the core still has its unity, even though I've got this other story that my mind might wants to react to, right? And both are here. Both are here. So as you know, I've been for the last couple months, I've been fascinated by this action, right? Let's go through it again. So when I was doing it, when we were just talking again, I was just like having a freaking party inside my head. Because remember, I'm talking about bones here, and I'm going like, okay, so I want the gravitational effect. So if you try to do these things, when you're following prana as it manifests through your body, because by the way, there's never a time that prana is not manifesting through your body. It's whether your being can be congruent with how it's flowing. And what's incredible about prana is it's flowing in every direction at once, right? So to say it's only going down, it's only going up, that's actually just a freaking lie. That's just a lie, right? But there are ways for you to plug in better, right? So I'm letting the grass, so I'm doing this thing because I'm remembering, I'm feeling what we started with, and I don't want to waste what I've done so far. So I want to let the river go down, find my sitting bones, let my bones exhale down to my knee, down to my heel, right? And I know my spine's coming back in opposition, or not in opposition, but as an expression, right? And then there are other things you can do. But now, what I was having fun when I went into prayer, I was like, and I only talked about the heel in my hands, right? So as soon as you do all this, don't collapse your spine, right? Your spine needs to stay alert for stuff for most every pose, right? And so you heal up your hands, and that makes me feel my inner ground. A whole bunch of things happen when I do this, right? And and don't do it for a second. So my mind's always the last of the party. So I have to like do things over and take things away and do all this stuff. So here it goes again. And I notice the change of sensation when those bones go together. Now I'm bringing my hands together, and you can do this. If you can't bring your palms together, you can do it on the table. You can do it on your thighs, do it on your thighs maybe. But now I was thinking about this thing I talked about bones. Now I want these pads that are actually bones, right? I want them to sync up with the heel and these pads. So I'm going to come back to the pose and make sure, and then I'm going to make sure my fingertips come together. And so I don't know about you. Okay. So this makes me super happy, right? So let's stop again. So does anyone feel what I'm talking about, right? I do this, and I thought I had a really cool story. I do this, and then I do this. And all of a sudden, when I connect all of those bones into my pose with a little bit of mental awareness, with a little bit of mind, it's like all of a sudden things change in my upper back, they change in my legs. And now just go back to this, just to your heels. Wait, what? I just lost something. Well, what the hell's going on here? How could things like this change so much? It's a freaking party. There's like a whole bunch of things waiting to be connected in your experience. So now I'm going to try to actually move the skin in relationship to the bones because I've been talking about this. You all have been talking about this position for a long time. Find your whole body from having your hands in prayer. Don't forget the gravitational effect. Don't forget where the heels are. Don't forget the length in your spine. It's all happening. Breathe into more of the totality. Good. And then release. So years and years ago, actually, when I was in the first couple of years I was doing yoga, right? I remember reading a line or hearing a line that BKS Iyengar uttered, which was all of dog poses mirrored in the hands. And I thought that was cool. I can feel my hands. So if I can like access all of dog pose from my hands, that makes me happy. A door just got open. But then, of course, if it's dog pose, it's not just dog pose, right? It would be this too. It would be the hands. And the hands are a good one to start with because we have so much neural connection to our hands, right? But it's actually every point in your entire pose can actually mirror and is a mirror for every point for the whole pose. Another really good place to feel as a mirror is the center of your chest. The empty space in your chest is another really good. So if you can sync up some connection to your hands and the center of your chest, now as I'm like working my hands and feeling what I can control more, and I can feel my skin, right? The center of my chest, which I can't quite as tangibly get, maybe I'll call that for today just a little bit of moon, more moon, and the actual sensation of my skin on my hands, a little bit more of the sun. But the center depth in the center of my palm, which I can't, is more like the center of my chest. But my skin and the part that touches outward is a little bit more of the sun. And I'm going to broaden across my sacrum. I'm going to hit my elbows down a little bit on the table. And I'm going to start coming into more and more of an active pose. And I'm going to make sure I'm breathing. Lengthening, letting, still not stealing from my legs. I had been stealing from my legs that whole time. So now I'm going to try to not steal from my legs, let the energy go down to my heels, lift my spine in opposition, do all the stuff in my hands again, center of my chest again. And I'm going to think, holy cow, there's a lot of me here. Good. And then release. I suspect that Amanda was thinking about her core as her abdominal muscles and abdominal strength. I suspect that she's been operating with a relatively narrow definition of core, but she uses a very cool word. She calls it core, right? All right, inhale, take your arms up. So yeah, we'll mirror Amanda for a second. So if I want to activate my core, I'm going to go down through my sitting bones and lift my chest, right? And then the other way. So are you able to do this, Amanda? Can you actually like, does that have anything to do with your core? Or are you only testing your core in its weakest place and saying, where have you gone? Where have you gone? Where have you gone? Right? I'm doing it the other way. So now I'm going, okay, how am I going to activate my core in relationship to any movement? Oh my God. So I'm getting down through my sitting bones and down, letting the gravitational effect of Shavasana go down to my feet. But then I'm actively doing it. And I'm going to stretch the underside of my shoulder blade out to my elbow. I'm going to open my palm. And suddenly I'm going to go, dang, I want to feel now that's my left arm. I want to feel my right sitting bone in my right foot. And I'm going to go on both sides of my core. And I'm going to go like, holy cow. Here's a yoga pose. Good. And then release. So I like that because our hands are up, someone's hand went up in class. So we'll do it both sides. Now, this is not what I was just about to teach, but I was going to teach a twist and I had to watch Amanda, right? So now I'm going to do something wild. I'm going to like have both arms up. I'm going to find both sitting bones, both heels. But now I'm going to let my palm open like the center of my chest opening and my shoulder blades dropping. And I'm going to like extend and let my groin drop, gravitational effect down. I'm going to balance my head over my neck. I'm going to go from my sitting bones beyond the top of my head. I'm going to open my palms into the whole room. I'm going to open the space between my shoulder blades into the whole room like I'm opening my palms. And I'm going to breathe. Good. And then release. So if I were someone who thought my core had just disappeared, I would try practicing that with more and slightly less support of leaning back into my chair. Like just a tiny little bit. Still keep conditions of safety, but that just be me. If I were like worried about where my core went. Inhale, take your arms up, exhale, revolve. Oh, we get to do something we know now. So how do you find the core here? I'm going to find my bones. I'm going to find the gravitational effect. I'm going to rise my spine in opposition, trying not to steal from my legs. And then I'm going to realize, hey, I think I'll wring out my spine a little bit. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. I have to make sure I don't do this too much on the outer body or else I irritate my abdomen. So I'm going to not go as far. I'm going to have to quell my mind's desire to win, stay within my yogic integrity. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. If I want to find my core, good, and then release. Stay within the boundary of your pose, Angelique, as you're trying to take your legs wide and been grieving all the fact that they're not going as wide. Find a way to work expansively in the place that your legs actually are. Then over time, see if it matters if you need to take your legs wider again. Inhale, lift up, go down, broaden, gravitational effect, all the freaking stuff we've been doing. But remember, we're trying to, when you work with prana, you're not doing it as a muscular action. You're letting it happen. And then you're adding your action to what's already happening. And then revolve. Remember, another really important line that changed my whole yoga practice. In yoga, you only need a center of gravity and a sense of direction. He didn't say muscular action. Muscular action comes after. We're trying to get the sense of direction of up and down and expanding into space as the core of any particular asana, right? So I'm hitting down, I'm releasing down through, not stealing from my legs, rising up through my spine, broadening between my shoulder blades, making sure that the gravitational effect is still happening. Now more actively hitting down, inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. And I'm doing some gentle wringing of my spine, quelling my mind's desire to go farther because farther is not better. I'm staying within the boundaries of my yoga pose today to stay connected to my core. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Come on, back to center. So if you don't think good and you don't think not good, what's your true self? Said that a couple weeks ago, didn't I? It's a Zen koan. Didn't we talk about this? Yeah, yeah. What if you actually just did yoga without always thinking good and not good, right? Downward facing dog, whatever version you're doing. So when there's more drama and there's more arm action and all this stuff, and remember, the dude said something like, olive dog poses mirrored in your hands, right? So I'm gonna like take some time. But remember, as I start focusing on my arms, my hands, I want to not steal from my legs. So wait, I'm gonna have to start over because I was already stealing. I went right off. I started the race in the middle, right? So I'm gonna like release for a second, be in the position, let my exhale happen, let the gravitational effect happen, rise out of the earth like a phoenix through my spine, right? And then I'm gonna start to activate my hands. In order to activate my hands, I have to go through my arms, right? So I got to do it again. I went too fast in my hands. So I'm gonna like come be out of the pose in kind of a funny position. Now I'm gonna come and emerge into downward facing dog, right? And get it all activated. And then I'm gonna go, okay, how am I using my hands when I connect to the heel of the hand, to the mound, to the fingertips? Do I feel more of my body? I hope you do. Make that be the guide to actually now broadening across the sacrum, the space between the sternum, between the shoulder blades. Go down through your leg, stretch out through the top of your head. Look down to stay humble. Lift the chest a little bit. Drop the groin down towards your chair seat. Breathe. Broaden across the collarbones. I'm just like telling you all the things that I'm doing, but I'm not quite doing them. I'm letting them happen because I don't want to do violence. Good. And then release. I hope you figured out from the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking a little bit about headstand, right? You've been like, the classes have gone that way because I've been thinking about headstand, right? So now I'm going to lean over to one side. Remember, we're thinking about this disappeared core. So this core, it's all gone. I don't have any anymore. And my only test is whether I can push myself back up, right? You know, I'm sorry. I hope you're pleasantly feeling mocked, Amanda. You're not feeling bad about it. But I want to show you that what happens when you start to only think about your yoga practice in terms of what you've lost, in terms of what's not happening, you end up narrowing what's happening in your yoga practice. You get in kind of a tunnel vision and you don't let yoga teach you anymore. You just think about, oh, I'm not doing this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not that. And that literally makes you go into a tunnel, right? So I'm going to lean over and think a little bit and be safe here. But I'm going to say, okay, now I know kind of what my core feels like. I kind of, but by the way, cores are, I think the core channel in your body is like kind of like trying to find your bones. You don't know exactly if you're there, right? So I'm pushing down on my leg because I'm going to use my bones now. Remember, I'm trying to put down grounding so I can figure out how, so you can see, look what I just naturally do. I start making a good base right away, right? I want my legs to be part of this pose. And so I'm leaning over, I'm watching the gravity shift, and I'm trying to find integrity up through my spine and trying to have this connection like broaden between my shoulder blades and do a whole bunch of things. But I'm still trying to remember, prana is already happening. It's already happening down through your legs. It's whether you can jump into that current, right? And let it inform how the lift goes up this way, right? So I'm looking for my core here. And I'm making sure this bone connection, this is a really good bone connection for me right here, right? And I'm making sure my spine, and I could say something perfect, like smile, like a little smiley face with your chest, right? That helps, whatever words help you there, right? And then release. So I'm staying within my core channel. I'm not challenging my boundary, my balance too far, and I'm go the other way, right? And again, I'm getting all these things I'm looking for, how to get this gravitational effect. And remember, we're still looking for when you're really tired and you go to rest your bones, right? When you first lay into bed, you go, oh, but very shortly there starts to be that rise, like steam coming off of pavement. That's part of your bones, right? So I'm going this way and I'm grounding. So I'm finding the bed here, right? I'm finding resting my bones. And now I'm going to start to activate through my core, right? And hit down and rise up and still make sure I make it down through. Remember, I'm still trying to drop the depth of my inner groin down through between my sitting bones, but then release down my knee, down to my knees, down to my heels, while this is going up in opposition, right? And I'm going to add to it because I know horizontal, this is all mirrored in your hands, by the way, right? When you put your hands on the table, I'm broadening between my shoulder blades because that's the same as opening the center of my palm, right? When your hands, and so I'm like doing that. So this is kind of an intense twist, but it's a twist that's coming from the core, right? Good, and then release. Now, here's the thing about working with your core, right? It takes a lot of focus and you can get there by working really hard. Like if I were to raise my voice and start going, do it, push, pull, right? That's a way to get there, except you're more likely to do violence, right? Because when you actually get into your core, you're in a place where your mind can do violence because it doesn't know that it's like, this is too extreme, but it's like playing with dynamite. It's like your core is really powerful. And you got to be careful not to let your will superficially get in there and crank, right? And if you're a dull student and that's how you find your core is through a lot of will, you're going to injure yourself, right? All right, so let's get a little bit more expansive, right? So let's take one arm out or like whatever you're doing here, right? And let's do both arms, what the hell, right? So now I have a harder time here finding my core, but what yogic techniques do I know to help me find my core? I'm going to find my sitting bones, of course. I'm going to find the space where my spine is. I can tell I'm having a hard time open right through here, right? So I'm going to take some time to try to open, especially this side for right now, right? So in order to help this side open more, I'm going to make sure my sitting bones are being grounded. And I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones up to the top of my head. I'm going to start to activate pranic space that was already here. I'm going to make sure the gravitational effect is happening in my legs and I'm going down to my inner heel. I'm going to try to balance my head over my neck and I'm going to breathe. Right? Good. And then release. I could have done exactly the same pose, not exactly the same pose, but very close to the same pose if I hadn't taken my arms wide. Could have done it right here. So let's do it right here. Right? So I'm going to cheat a little bit, but I got armrests right here. I'm going to put my elbows on the armrest because that makes it even easier, right? And I'm going to find my sitting bones. I'm going to find through my core, let the gravitational effect happen through my legs. Try to not steal from my legs and let there be the lightness, like the steam coming off the pavement of rising up through my spine. I'm going to broaden out here, right? Do it from the backside, from between the shoulder blades. And I'm going to extend energy beyond my arms, straight out, even though my arms are down. Remember, you got more than one sets of arms if you want, right? And you're going to extend. You're going to extend your arms out this way without doing it by actually activating your core, right? Activate your core more. To activate your core, go down through your sitting bones to the floor, go beyond the top of your head, broaden between the shoulder blades, go beyond your shoulders. Breathe. Good, and then release. So, Amanda, were you doing that?
Yes.
So now this is for everybody now. So when I was just doing it, because I kind of fell in love with being able to do it, one of the things I forgot to do was drop my inner groin. So I got all caught up in going this way and being in the space and going down and going up and being in expansive space that I forgot that part of the direction is having the fountain go back down through the core as I'm extending out. Right? So we're going to do the same thing again. Right? And as you watch, so the thing about the mind, I remember I heard this a few years ago. Biggest Singer was getting interviewed. BKS Iyengar was getting interviewed, and he said that the mind will always follow the action, the outward action, right? And that's what it's for, especially the eyes. The eyes are more tied to the mind. And who knows which came first, the chicken or the egg, because we follow action goes outward, right? But being able to develop inward action simultaneously with outward expression is part of what you're trying to figure out how to master in or at least integrate. I don't know if it's master, but trying to integrate in yoga poses. So here we're going to go through a whole action, right? Same thing of what we just did. All right. So we're going to do all this stuff, right? Which I don't want you just to imagine. I want you to feel it. Remember, prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. So you're using the structure that you can feel. So I'm feeling my sitting bones. I'm allowing the gravitational effect. I'm extending like steam coming up a pavement up my spine as I go towards the earth. As I release down, I'm finding my sense in my bones. Now I'm going to start to broaden, right? Make sure I open across here and go out through my shoulder blades, right? Now I'm going to hit down. I'm going to hit down. All these are weirdly making my mind work too hard. So I'm going to go down through my sitting bones, beyond the top of my head. So I'm gonna make, oh, I said my head's off balance. I can feel that from the pose. Now I'm gonna do all this and extend beyond my arms. But while I'm extending beyond my arms, I'm gonna let it go down through my groin down to the floor. Right? So I'm gonna do both. I'm gonna go out and in as I'm expressing out. It's harder for my mind to not want to go out. Breathe. What happens when I allow my inner groin to drop? What happens to the outer movement beyond my shoulders? What happens to, am I extending through my sitting bones out to the top of my head? How do things change? Good, and then release. Ooh, Lordy. Was that tiring for anybody? Or was that super easy? If it was super easy, naughty, you're naughty. You're naughty and you're not getting away with it. You're only stealing from yourself, right? You're waiting for the next frame. All right, let's get some more space here, right? So I'm gonna go back up and over my chair. I've got a loose screw in my backrest, so I better not go back too far. So if you all of a sudden see me go, ass over tea kettle, whatever that thing is, that would be me busting the back of my chair. So I'm going up and over and spreading it, right? And when you do this and you open this way, I wonder what happens if Amanda and everyone else were to open this way on the back bend, but also drop down through the inner thighs and the groin down into the seat. If you could get those actions going and going and working with each other. So I'm actually going to turn my femur bones in with my hands because I want to make sure I really get it. Oh, it's harder to go to the earth. Right? So I heard Richard Freeman say to me, I can still remember we were sitting outside eating lunch, and he said, in order for in order for the earth to be realized, something has to drop towards the earth, right? And apparently, in some texts he had read, ancient texts that he had studied, and I've said this to you before, that some of the ancient yogis compare that to dewdrops, like the drops like that might form on grass in the morning have to drop. And he said that happens at the groin. So it's a whole other order of awareness, right? So when you're doing this back bend, right, that's very active and sun-like, let it be early morning and there's that chill and something has to drop and release. And he and I talked about that would have to be a softening at the base of the spine. It's not even just the groin. So I'm going to go up and over. And then I'm going to allow an infinite depth that I can't control at the base of my spine as I open this way. And notice when you do that, no, don't forget your heels. Good. And then come on back. Did anyone notice that when you had to combine the base of the spine like that, and you realized you had to do it by letting something happen? Did you notice that the back bend became less violent? You couldn't use as much of your will because you can't make something drop at the base of your spine. You can't push it. What? But you're telling me to hit down through my sitting bones and blah, blah, blah. No, we're also trying to talk about the gravitational effect, trying to get it coming from Shavasana. Because guess where we end back up? You end up part of the earth again, right? Something will drop, right, in your life arc. Okay, so try it one more time. So I'm not going to push on my legs. No, that was me being more willful, but I am going to guide my legs so I can find the space where near the base of my spine. So as I come up and over, I want something else going down towards the earth as I open towards the sun, right? And I want to make sure I keep my heels, right? And I go up and over, and suddenly I become more aware of the skin on my chest, the skin on my pose, because everything else is in sync, or more is in sync. Never everything. And then come on back. There's always more to be curious about. Take your right hand outside your left leg. Other hand behind you. Inhale, lift up, and gently, like you're kind of pirouetting or like being lighter. Inhale, lift up, exhale out. Don't crank this twist. Don't go as far. Smile at your core, right? Make sure it's part of your pose without being in action. Good. And then release, right? Let things be with you that had ever actually never left you. One of which would be your core channel. Allow that your core channel is part of every movement. Use your breath. Good. And then come on back to center. Be in the center. I'm just going to ground for a second on my table. You find my bones before I do Shavasana because I want my bones here. I like my bones. and then find a way into the back of my chair where I can let support hold me up. I want the support to enter my empty spaces. So in order to do that, I soften my temples, the jaw, the inside of my mouth. Close my eyes. I let there be a hum in my ankles and my knees and my hips because the hum was already there. I don't make anything happen, right? It was already just being there, right? Because I did a lot of work up through here, I've got to kind of take some time to let this have its emptiness again. I'm gonna let my sitting bones go. Oh, let my ankles go. Oh, and then let there be the natural rise that also happens in Shavasana. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. And you get to close them for a bit if you want, and then open them again. So one of the things that I think I'm bummed about this, but I think this is true. I think that the mind gains traction, um, better traction, the mind now. The mind gains better grounding at first with through negative judgments. Right? That's how you anchor your mind in the world, you know. You kind of like look up and so like and one of the things that I hope your yoga practice is, and I don't mean like negative, don't think too much about it, but even like kind of what we started with, like, my car has disappeared, or Angelique saying like, can't do this, and I got to work on that. And I want to be more present, and that's a step that your mind has to make in order to get grounded in experience. I think this is one of the bummer things for the way our consciousness is configured, that the 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 mind grounds through awareness of what is not. But that's not the mind's fault. That's kind of what it does. But hopefully that you can get to where you can get your mind grounded, if that, but know, and I hope you get it in things like Shavasana, and maybe in this class, that there's a sensation or a version of you, which is your life, that actually precedes your mind's judgment. It actually precedes, right? And so what you're trying to do in a yoga practice, and so is let both be there, because your mind's going to judge. That's okay. You're not, it's whether you allow, there's multiple stories, right? And part of how you get through the day and get through the world and motivate yourself to practice sometimes is to think about what's lacking or what's not, right? But then know that there's this other level, that your mind's judgment was part of the folly that it needed to get going, right? So with that in mind, have a good week. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.